You see the title of the video. Let's jump right in. With the first pick, I have the Mavericks taking Cooper Flagg. This should come as no surprise to anyone, as Flagg has been hyped up as the first pick since he committed to Duke and reclassified a year early in high school to be eligible for the 2025 NBA draft class. With him just turning 18 years old, Flagg led Duke to the Final Four this past season while winning the nation's Best Player of the Year award. He put up averages of 19 points, 7.5 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal and a block and a half per game, while shooting very efficiently from the field from both inside and outside the arc. There are still some questions when it comes to the consistency of a three-point shot, but all signs are pointing to him being able to knock it down at the next level. Everything else is pretty much assumed at this point. Flagg is a very fiery and passionate competitor who's consistently developed different aspects of his game, which has transformed him into the prototypical NBA wing prospect that professional teams fawn over. He's been compared to guys like Scottie Pippen, Jason Tatum, and Kawhi Leonard because of that said versatility on both ends of the floor. Flagg will join a team filled with aging stars in Kyrie, Anthony Davis, and Klay Thompson, and a cast of intriguing role players like PJ Washington and Derek Lively, among others. No matter what direction this team goes into forward, one thing's for certain: Cooper Flagg should be the guy to build the team around. Everyone's favorite Nico Harrison and the rest of the Mavericks organization really lucked into this pick because Flagg should be a star player sooner rather than later. I have the Utah Jazz jumping up 3 spots and taking Dylan Harper with the second pick after trading the 5th pick and 2 future firsts to the Spurs. Utah moves up in this scenario and takes the consensus second best prospect in this year's class in Dylan Harper. Harper played just 1 season at Rutgers where he put up averages of about 19 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists per game. He's listed at around 6'4" to 6'5", and as the lead guard for the Scarlet Knights, he showcased his bag of tricks to put the ball in the basket at ease. Harper's repertoire includes a variety of Euro steps, spins, and step-throughs that isn't seen by your typical 19-year-old guard prospect. His game screams fluidity and maturity, which is why he's compared to other ball-dominant guards like Cade Cunningham and to a much higher degree, James Harden. I'm not sure he'll reach the same level as those guys, but if he's drafted by the Jazz, he'll have plenty of opportunity to gain valuable reps, as the Jazz have a young core of players, but no one that sticks out as a definitive long-term piece of the franchise. The Jazz trade up for hopefully their next star caliber player, and the Spurs trade down since Harper is more than likely the second best player in the draft, but they already have 2 starting guards in De'Aaron Fox and Stephon Castle. With the 3rd pick, I have Philly taking Ace Bailey. Similar to the Mavericks, Philly is in an interesting scenario of being able to go all in and try to contend, or to start from scratch in a rebuilding phase. Either way, in my opinion, I think taking Ace here is the right decision, as he projects to be a high caliber starting wing in this league. He put up averages of 17.5 points on about 35% from 3 to go along with about 7 boards and over a block per night. Bailey played alongside Dylan Harper this past season at Rutgers, and found a way to put his skills on display night in and night out, with him being one of the more versatile forwards in the country. Scouts mostly fawn over his shot-making ability, especially from deep, with him taking around 4.5 threes per game, to go along with his tough shot-making on his pull-ups. He's gotten compared to tall and lanky wings like Jaden McDaniels, Michael Porter Jr., and Paul George, who he'll be playing alongside if he's drafted by the 76ers. For Philly, taking Ace Bailey gives them another building block for the future, even if the process doesn't end up in a championship now that PG is really old and injury prone, and Joel Embiid may have to retire due to health concerns. If the future really is that bleak for Philly, they'll still have a nice young core of guys like Tyrese Maxey, Jared McCain, and Ace Bailey if taken here at 3. I have the Hornets selecting VJ Edgecombe out of Baylor with the 4th pick. VJ is one of my personal favorite prospects in this year's class due to his seemingly never-ending competitive spirit to go along with his supreme athleticism. He projects to be one of the best defensive players in this class, especially at the 2 or 3 position, and should help out a struggling Hornets defensive unit. VJ averaged about 15 points last season on about 34% from 3, while taking about 4.5 attempts per game, and shot better from 3 as the season progressed. He's gotten compared to guys like Victor Oladipo, Derek White, and even shades of Dwayne Wade, guards who compete mightily on both ends of the court. I think Edgecombe would be a good fit next to LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller, 2 guys who are more offensive oriented, and VJ could thrive doing the little things, especially on defense. And maybe VJ's motor allows his offensive game to get so good to where he becomes one of the most dynamic two-way players in the association. After San Antonio trades down a couple of picks here, I have them taking Con Knipple out of Duke with the 5th pick. Khan was a part of the Duke squad with Cooper Flagg that made the Final Four last season and was arguably their second best player. Not to mention he stepped up in the ACC tournament whenever Cooper missed some time due to injury. He put up averages of about 14.5 points, 4 rebounds, and a little over 2.5 assists per contest, but his most intriguing attribute is the spacing he provides. He shot over 40% from 3 this past season on about 5 attempts per game. His jump shot seems to already have excellent mechanics, which should translate to him being a consistent catch-and-shoot 3-point scorer in the league. He also has shown flashes of being a capable playmaker at times and has developed an intriguing inside game, highlighted by a variety of floaters and teardrop shots. His main concern is the lack of defensive versatility, but joining a Spurs team that is great on the defensive end with Wemby on the court may hide some of those deficiencies. Some of his comps would be Gordon Hayward, Cam Johnson, and Bojan Bogdanovic, who are guys that possess a pretty nice all-around offensive game without having that great athleticism. Shooters are very important in today's league, and it's especially important to surround a guy like Wemby with shooting, and I think Khan would be great at helping San Antonio space the floor. At the 6th pick, I have the Wizards taking Derek Queen out of Maryland. Queen is one of the more polarizing prospects coming into the draft. He's a more offensive-oriented face-up big that thrives at scoring in the interior and low block by using his massive 6'9", 250-pound frame. The most intriguing part of his game to most is his playmaking ability. He didn't average that many assists, but has shown the touch and overall vision to be an effective passer out of the post, in a similar vein to guys he's compared to, like Domantas Sabonis and Boris Diaw. The main question mark on his game is the defensive side of the basketball. He did put up over a steal and block per game last season at Maryland, but may not have the foot speed or verticality to keep up with shiftier players driving to the basket in the league. But that's why I like the fit of Washington. They have a lot of intriguing young players, especially on the defensive end, like Bub Carrington, Bilal Coulibaly, Kaishan George, and Alex Sarr. 3 of those 4 guys have shown flashes of defensive brilliance in their young careers, and I think this would allow Queen to worry more about being a hub on the offensive side of the ball because he wouldn't have to carry the load on defense. That front court pairing of Queen and Sarr sounds good, and if Sarr continues to hit his 3-pointers like he started to do towards the latter half of the season, Washington could quickly find themselves with one of the best young cores in the league. With the 7th pick, I have the Pelicans taking Kasparas Jakučiūnas. Excuse me if I butchered that name, by the way. But regardless, Jakučiūnas is one of the more polarizing players in this year's class due to his seemingly very high ceiling and otherwise low floor. He averaged about 13.5 points, 4.5 boards, and 6 assists last season at Illinois. Jakučiūnas was given a lot of offensive responsibility in college last season as a freshman and was able to be consistently productive. He's a capable but at times streaky shot creator, with him standing around 6'5" and is arguably the best playmaker in this year's class, with him possessing elite court vision. However, he shot just 32% from 3 last season on a lot of difficult step back threes, which he's in love with taking. He didn't consistently attack the basket or pull up from mid-range that often last season, so he'll have to develop as an inside scorer to reach his true potential as a scorer. He's also going to be limited defensively as he's not the greatest athlete and is not the most physically imposing guy either. With all that being said, because of his high ceiling on the offensive side of the ball, he's gotten compared to guys like Tyrese Haliburton and Austin Reeves. For New Orleans, here they get a chance to potentially take their franchise point guard after there is some uncertainty within the organization on what direction to take, with veterans like DeJounte Murray and CJ McCollum probably not wanting to be a part of a losing team and Zion Williamson's health always being a huge question mark. Even if those guys are traded, Jakučiūnas could join a young core of guys like Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, Yves Messi, and Jordan Hawkins. At pick 8, I had the Brooklyn Nets taking Jeremiah Fears out of Oklahoma. The Nets have 4 first-round picks this year, so my thought for them is to take guys with the most upside, since their team doesn't have any real expectations for the next coming years. That's the main intrigue with Fears. He averaged about 17 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists last season as a freshman for the Sooners and was asked a lot on the offensive end. He showed a lot of potential when it comes to downhill finishing at the rim, with him being one of the best pound-for-pound athletes in this class. He still has some concerns when it comes to decision making and consistent jump shooting, but the Nets really don't have a timeline, so he'll get plenty of burn in Brooklyn as the lead guard. Fears is compared to other supremely athletic point guards like John Wall and Scoot Henderson. Hopefully for the Nets, Fears comes in and learns how to master the flow of an NBA offense and can be their starting point guard for the foreseeable future. With the 9th pick, I had the Raptors taking Kamal Malawach out of Duke. Malawach was a part of that Final Four Duke team this past season and was teammates with Cooper Flagg Flag and Con Knipple, so he wasn't asked to score the ball a lot in his lone season in college. While Malawach has a pretty polished touch around the rim, is a good free throw shooter, and should be an excellent lob threat, most of his upside is as a defensive anchor. He will come into the league having a 9'8" standing reach, which is 1 inch longer than Victor Wembanyama's standing reach, and Malawach uses this length very effectively. His ability to read defenses and to cover ground in a short amount of time is very impressive for his size, and as someone who stands at about 7'1", he's able to get low when guarding smaller defenders as needed. Raptors take him with the hopes of him being their franchise center, as Jakob Poeltl is still a very good role player, but he's getting up there in age. Scotty Barnes and Khamen Malawach projects to be a nightmarish defensive front court for opposing teams for many years to come if they draft him. I have the Rockets taking Carter Bryant with the 10th pick in the draft. Bryant wasn't the most productive player in his freshman season at Arizona, with his counting stats not really jumping off the page, but his impact was seen in his versatility and things that may not show up in the box score. For starters, he stands at around 6'7" and weighs about 215 pounds and has a 7-foot wingspan, the usual build for 3-and-D players in the NBA, and that's his main appeal. He made his impact on both ends of the court for the Wildcats last season and made clear strides in his game as the year went on and helped them make the Sweet 16. He checks off all the boxes for a key role player in the NBA and has been compared to guys like Jaden McDaniels, OG Anunoby, and to a former Rocket in Trevor Ariza. Houston was the 2nd seed out west last season and had this pick via the Phoenix Suns, and while they should look to acquire a star player this offseason to hopefully catapult them into that real championship contender tier, Carter Bryant could come in and be a solid contributor for them without getting in the way of other players. With the 11th pick, I have the Portland Trail Blazers taking Colin Murray Boyles out of South Carolina. He played on a struggling Gamecocks team this past season, but still managed to be the team's brightest star by a wide margin. He averaged about 17 points, 8 rebounds, and 2.5 assists per game, but this is not where most of his upside lies. When watching Murray Boyles this past season, you could see that he was one of, if not the best defensive player in college basketball. And combine that with his 6'7", 240-pound frame, you get a very intriguing prospect. For his hefty build, he's very agile and has a great feel for the game and has no problem reading opposing defenses and provides great off-ball defense with having flexibility to guard positions 1 through 5 at times. He also puts his tweener build to good use on the offensive end of the floor, with him having a developed post game at just 20 years old. He has a soft touch around the rim and can usually get to his spots with ease because of his strength, and at times was the Gamecocks' primary playmaker on offense, especially out of the post. His only real knock as a player is a huge question mark, which is the lack of a consistent outside shot. So opposing teams may dare him to shoot, which may limit his effectiveness. Think of him in the same vein as Draymond Green. Murray Boyles might not reach the heights of Draymond, but if you're the Trailblazers, a team that has a logjam at multiple positions, getting a guy like Murray Boyles could end up being a very valuable investment if he reaches his ceiling as a defender. At pick 12, I have the Bulls taking Thomas Sorber. Chicago will probably look to move on from the Vucevic era at center, and at this point on the board, Sorber is probably the best option. He was a nice two-way big as a freshman at Georgetown, and most of his intrigue is as a defensive anchor, which is something the Bulls have looked for at the 5 spot since Joakim Noah left. With the 13th pick, I have the Hawks taking Trey Johnson out of Texas. In this scenario, Trey Johnson falls out of the top 10 when he is projected to go a lot higher by most mock drafts, but I just feel like the players before him fit those teams better than Johnson does. That's not to say that he won't be good. His main appeal is as a bucket getter, which is what he was at Texas this past season, with him averaging 20 points a night while shooting almost 40% from 3 on 7 attempts per game. I think the Hawks go best player available here and use Johnson as a 6th man for now, who only has to worry about scoring the ball in a similar vein to former Hawks Lou Williams and Jamal Crawford. And the last pick of the lottery, I have the Spurs taking Rasheer Fleming out of St. Joseph's. Fleming doesn't project to have a crazy high upside like some of his lottery pick counterparts, but his appeal is in his all-around game. He was a junior last season, so he'll come into the league as an older rookie, and he was no doubt one of the most effective two-way players in the country last season. He already has a silky smooth jump shot and has shown the ability to guard multiple positions on the defensive side of the ball. He could come in like Knipple and complement the players already established in San Antonio and work really well as a do-it-all four next to Wemby in the front court. Those were my 2025 NBA Draft Lottery picks. If you made it this far, be sure to like the video.